So Jill and I were trying to figure out what we would do for a large gift for Maddie's birthday. And while we were getting the typical toys and the stuffed animals and the Mickey dress-up outfits, I wanted to do something special. And since I redid the patio just recently and our yard has been a fantastic place to be, we thought a mud kitchen would be a pretty cool gift. Yeah. Let's go get some pallets. So I did, and got to work. Now I really didn't know what the layout was going to be here, so I kind of just got home, threw them together, and saw what's what. But I absolutely knew it wasn't going to be this crummy color that they came in. And I also knew that I wanted to build somewhat of like cabinets for it. So it would have two levels. It would have a base that would keep it off the ground and some sort of shelf on the interior. And then it would definitely have a countertop, of course. It's a kitchen. It would have a stove. It would have a sink. And since this is a pallet build, I wanted to try and reuse as much scrap lumber as I could. For example, this trim piece is just a bunch of spruce that I found in a lumber rack. But I also knew that I was going to put multiple coats of paint on it, so it was going to seal all the splinters and things away. And when I finished this night at 1 a.m, I began dreaming about the different kitchens that I saw on Pinterest and how I would build this one out to be just as good, if not better, as some of the ones I saw. But it definitely has to have a stove, a sink, a water source for sure. Maddie loves playing with water. And then hanging for hooks. And I thought I might even get a dishwasher in there somehow. But for now, I had to start in the sink. Hey look, a sink. And then for the water source, I found this pitcher. And so I made this little shelf above the sink for the pitcher of water. And then it was time to start with the stove parts. I used a 6-inch hole saw for the big burners, a 4-inch hole saw for the small burners, and a 2-inch hole saw for the handles. And while I was sanding them down, I almost shot one of them halfway across the room. So that was fun. And then I thought, hey man, I should build a sign for this thing. And so I did. And I knew I didn't want to call it just Mud Kitchen. At first I actually thought that was just too simple. I thought I could do better than that. I mean, maybe just different, I guess. And so I decided to just make a simple circle, and then whatever name of the kitchen became is what I would fit on the sign. And so I made a very rudimentary circle jig. I ripped a piece of 1/2-inch scrap plywood down to 1.5 inches, measured up 1 inch from one end, and then from that 1-inch mark, I measured 8 inches. I screwed into a piece of 3/4 plywood at the 1-inch mark, and then drilled a hole at the 8-inch mark, and when you trace that all the way around, it creates a 16-inch diameter circle. Now it's time to make a few door fronts. Again, using scrap 3/4-inch CDX, and I found some leftover hinges and some leftover door handles, and they actually fit pretty well. I like the look of them. So I have one door for the stove, one door for the dishwasher, and then one false front under the sink. And at the end of day 2, this is what we have to show. It's looking pretty good. Now at this point, I still didn't know what color I was going to paint it, but I knew that I would have to get the sign on first because I was going to make the sign a very bold color. Now I know this isn't a high caliber build. Like, I'm not making antique furniture here. But the sign on this build seemed to be a very important piece. And while I'm not making something professional, I did think of this at one point like it should be an organized and straight, square sign. So I spent a good amount of time tracing out, making some line grids and freehanding a little bit, but trying to make my lettering uniform and figure out what kind of font I wanted and all that sort of good stuff. But to be honest with you, the whole time I was doing this, it didn't feel like it fit what this mud kitchen was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a little disorganized, and so I got rid of it. I figured if a kid just wrote down kid's kitchen, what would it look like? It would look like my chicken scratch. You know what? It's perfect. Let's cut it out. I got this Dremel from my father-in-law a couple years ago for Christmas, and I've only used it on one other small project. And I kind of got used to using it on that project, and this is the second one, and I gotta tell you, I mean, what better of a way to use this thing than to make something for his grandchildren. And that's a pretty special thing. I'm not sure he ever thought of that, but I'm glad I have it. Now I want to seal this thing off real good because I knew it was going to get, all the elements of the weather. And so I used an oil-based primer, and I tried to smear it in the gaps and the lettering and stuff like that. I even put 2 coats of primer on it, and I'll put 2 coats of finish. And yes, this is rough construction grade plywood, and no, I did not perfect my cuts in the lettering, and I did not sand out every letter. But that's kind of the point. It's like imperfect piece of art. I loved making this sign. And I really love the way that white lettering pops right off the candy red paint. Boy, I love that. And I finished priming the doors and all the hardware for the stove. And that night I found on Pinterest, I found this picture. And the blue popped out to me. And that's when I realized that it would complement the red sign. And I definitely wanted that stove to be silver. Or some sort of metallic, like light gray, right? And then I had this porch and floor paint that was perfect for the countertop. It's starting to look pretty good. I like this dark gray countertop look. It's not bad. And I also thought this shelf above the stove should be some sort of metal looking thing too, so I used the same color as the stove. And of course the burners and the stove knobs have to be black. And the door for the stove has to match that same color too. Alright, here's what we got going on tonight. Doors are drying. Stove hardware is drying. These are all the colors I chose to get samples of from the box store. And then this is what I ended up with. So I got my sink in, I got this faucet. I chose kind of like a light blue for the back, figuring it would be nice and bright in the sun. Get a couple of coats on the top. I changed the color of the stove to like a lighter gray. Gotta build a drawer. Get the sign made. I'm gonna touch that up. Tomorrow, I'll reassemble everything. That'll be that. Alright, so here's the final kitchen. And I gotta tell you, I love this thing. This was such a joy to build. So here's the tour. You got the stove here. The knobs turn. Open the door, you've got a little cubby there. And then this next one over here, it's not labeled, but it's the dishwasher. The little rack drawer, pull out. I think they're gonna love that. And then you've got a couple of baskets with accessories in them, and that doesn't open, but this is where I'll put a little basin to catch the water. And then I've got the sink, a little cork in it. And then I've got the fountain. And of course the sign. And now it's time for the big unveil. Okay. Okay, look.
What is that? What do you guys think?
You're welcome.
Wow. How cool is that?
And you can pull that out, Callie. Pull on the rack. The whole thing comes right out.
Gosh, that's cool.
New pins. Okay. Is that fun? Is that fun? Do you love that? Boy, it's a good thing I increased the size of the screws on those hinges.